Good afternoon and welcome to the 330 Sports Show from downtown Youngstown, Ohio. We are a live stream podcast about what's trending in sports as well as many other mainstream topics. Each Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m., we'll take a closer look at the biggest stories in sports from across the country and right here in our valley. Today is Thursday, September 10th, 2020. My name is Justin Coffin, and I'm also going to be with, running behind the scenes, is Joe Danier, who is the founder of Youngstown Studios. We're going to bring in our guest in a couple minutes to intro him. But before we do that, I'd like to go over some sports news and notes from the last couple days since we've been off. So last night, big NBA game. Toronto, stayed alive by taking care of the Celtics in double overtime. Unbelievable game if you didn't get a chance to see it. So check out Game 7, which will be tomorrow night, Friday night. The Clippers beat up on the Nuggets last night to take a 3-1 series lead in that series. The Lakers go for the series win tonight against Houston. The Indians, we've talked about their struggles. Had another great pitching performance last night, but fell to the Royals 3-0. Just they can't get the hitting together at all this year. They actually fell one game back of the Chicago White Sox in the AL Central. They are sitting at 26-17, and believe it or not, there's only 17 games left to go in the regular season as we are in early September here. The Atlanta Braves last night, just a random baseball note, they just destroyed the Miami Marlins last night. A score I haven't seen this high in a long time, 29-5. It sounded like a little league game. But that tied for the second most runs in any Major League Baseball game since 1900. A little bit of sad news, but kind of bittersweet news, I guess. A former Pittsburgh Steeler and Ohio State linebacker Ryan Shazier last night officially retired from the NFL. You might remember a couple years ago he was basically paralyzed, broke some vertebrae, and had to relearn how to walk, which this guy was a top-tier linebacker, not just in college, but in the pros, and but he's done some great things off the field, and he's going to do some awesome things. On the football, not on the football field anymore, but going forward with his life. And tonight, we have our first Power 5 conference college football team with Miami, the U, taking on the University of Alabama Birmingham, UAB, tonight. So that's going to be our first big college football game as it gets into the weekend. We're going to talk NFL here in a little bit. And before I bring our guest on today, I'd like to intro over to our sponsor. Check out our sponsor, Coca's, before, during, or after the game at their 9 locations. So I'm going to put on a little spot by them.
Attention all football fans. If you can't see your team play, come and dine with us and watch it live at Boardman, Canfield, or Cortland. Or staying at home, we'll deliver right to your door. That's Coca's Pizza. We serve it hot.
All right, so I'm going to bring in our guest, outstanding guest in studio today. So you've probably seen him. You can see him on camera now. But if you don't know him, I guarantee you've seen some of his signs around Mahoning County. So please welcome Joe Schiavoni to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We appreciate you taking your time out of your day and coming down. So Joe, I'm going to just tell if we have any people watching or listening that would like to call in, feel free to send in a comment on Facebook Live, or they can call us at 330-595-1600. But Joe, why don't you, before we start getting into Q&A and things like that, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself? Tell us who you are.
Yeah, I grew up in this area. I went to Originally, I went to St. Dominic's for elementary school. We lived down on the south side behind Handles, which was a great neighborhood. We used to be able to, ride our bikes around down there, go to Handles, go to Brown's Drug, Dilts, get baseball cards at United Family. We had a nice crew of kids. We had a wiffle ball league down there. It was really, really cool. But we moved in 4th grade. I started at Stadium Drive and met a lot of good friends in Boardman schools and went, 4 through 12 at Boardman. I went during high school. I worked at Catulo Meats down on by Shirley Road down there. It was a great place. I worked there during college and law school. I went to OU for undergrad, Capital for law school. Came back and started working with my dad at the law firm in 2004. Okay. And then went on to work in the Senate and do some other things, and now running for judge. So it's been good. Awesome. I love this area just like you do, and I have nothing but positive things to say.
And that's what we need. I feel like we need more people. Like every time I see you, you're always in a good mood. You're always spreading a positive word. And, at least from my perspective, sometimes, if I go to Cleveland or Columbus, or even Pittsburgh, like a lot of people that have never even been here, sometimes there's that bad connotation with Youngstown. And it's like, have you been here in a while? Have you checked things out? Like, it's a pretty cool place to be.
I go through that. I mean, not as much now because I'm home all the time, but from 2008 to 2018, I spent half the week in Columbus. And the last 2 years in the Senate term, I ran for governor, so I was in a different city every day. And you don't understand how many times I would hear that. And it really pissed me off a lot. It was like, really what? You don't know what it's like. There's no mob up here, okay, guys? This isn't like what you read about in, we have good, hardworking people that just want the same things you do. We want to send our kids to good schools. We want good jobs. We want to be able to bring our family on vacation once in a while. It's like standard, normal stuff. But your history follows you, and it doesn't help when we still have things come up, when we still have corruption cases, then it just goes and just feeds right back into that. But I had a lot of times where I would be in a different city and people would say, Schiavoni, Youngstown, lawyer, politician, and it would take me a lot of time to show them who I was and to tell them why I'm there, and really just to get them to know me a little bit and to know our area. And I did the same thing you do. I tell people, come up here. I mean, come up to a Youngstown State game, come to Mill Creek Park, come up to our community, come to the Italian Fest or the Canfield Fair, and you'll have a different perspective when you leave.
No doubt. And I think, again, people might see a clip from The Sopranos or Boardwalk Empire referencing the Youngstown mob or something like that, and you feel like you got to defend it when that kind of stuff hasn't been around for years and years, and it's a great place to live.
It is, and I mean, it is part of our history, so you can embrace it and joke about it, but then there's a point where it's really not funny.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, and I don't know what that balance is, and I sometimes have a hard time figuring out where that line is, where it's like cool to joke about, but really not cool to dwell on.
Absolutely.
I guess it's a tough one.
Okay. All right. So going to Boardman, tell us some things you remember about Boardman growing up. When you said in 4th grade you started at Stadium Drive.
I loved Boardman schools. I learned a great deal from the teachers there. I had a lot of good friends. I played basketball in 7th. I got cut in 8th, so then I wrestled, and so wrestling was a really good sport. I really love basketball still, but when you're 5'7" and you're not that fast and you can't jump that high, you really probably 7th grade I topped out, right? I went into more individual sports for competitive stuff, but always still play, all the sports that I can play because I really do. I love that, and I think Boardman gave us a good opportunity to do a lot of intramurals for guys that like sports but couldn't play competitively. I played freshman football, but then again, that was being on the scout team. I was a September birthday, so I was super young. And so I was, like 14, and these guys are like 16, and they got like mustaches. And I'm sitting there, I'm like 5 foot, 110 pounds, running the ball with the scout team offense, and it was difficult. So focusing on, my studies and individual sports is where I went. But I got a lot of good friends still in this area that I met at Boardman, middle school and high school.
That's great. Which, and I think I read somewhere or saw in the past, your wife is actually a Mooney grad. Is that true? So kind of have a
And
little house
parents.
divide. Oh, and your parents.
Yeah, and parents.
Okay, so
my
you got a little
dad
house
couldn't.
divided?
My dad couldn't bribe me to go to Mooney after he sent me to Boardman for
Okay.
middle school. Yeah, so I'll cheer for the Cardinals, but I'm not quite in the Mooney family.
Right.
You know
Okay,
what I mean?
that's fair.
But it's all good. You
That's
know,
fair.
we got. We can cheer for both until they play each other, and then we have two boys, so. You know, one could wear Mooney stuff and one could wear Boardman for the Mooney Boardman games.
Absolutely. Well, and you were telling me, and I know from being a former teacher myself, in the buildings where your kids go, they're starting back to school soon. What's your thoughts on being a dad with that?
Yeah, Monday's school, and I'm excited they're going to get the opportunity to go back to school personally.
Yeah.
They're only going for a shortened day. It's going to be like an 8 to 1 at Boardman. But they've invested a considerable amount of resources in keeping kids safe. And so I want them to be in school. I think it's really important. I mean, personally and selfishly, my two kids are so close in age and they're both boys. They are going to kill one another unless they get back into the groove, right?
Yes.
Like we have them in sports, and now to get back into school, I think will be very beneficial for them in many different ways. I mean, Louis going into second and Dom's going into kindergarten.
Right.
And, you know, they're only like 18 months apart. So it's a friendly rivalry
No
when
doubt.
you're stuck together all day.
And that, I think that age, you know, being a second grade teacher, former second grade teacher myself, I think that age, especially your youngest son who's in kindergarten, that's huge for their social aspect. They need to be out of the house. They need that interaction with kids.
It is. And for him, for my little one, it was tough because he was the big boy at St. Luke's preschool, great place. And you know, it got cut off. So he didn't get to finish it, right? He didn't get to have that big celebration where you have your big ceremony.
Right.
He didn't get all his, just like most kids, everything just ended. So it was kind of like they're waiting for it to come back in some respect. Now, it's not going to be the same, but I think that if we all work together and we all be careful, we'll do the best that we can. Now, you never know. I mean, if there's things that occur and the kids got to go back home, we'll do what we got to do.
And yeah, I think that's the best thing you can do. You can do the best you can do, and you take it day by day. And
I like
that's
how Boardman made the decision to allow the parents to choose. Right?
Yes.
You want to go to school, go to school. You don't want to go to school, don't go to school. And I want to say about 65% of the families chose to go to school, but that allows for classes to be significantly smaller and allow for you to spread out a little more.
Yeah, I think Boardman's has been in really good hands with Mr. Saxton and Mr. Cardillo, and you know, they're doing a great job over there, just as well as the other administrators. This is a very, very unique time in our history, really. So, okay, let's move on to OU a little bit.
Okay.
I just want to ask you. I'm an Ohio State grad, but you know, late October every year I'd travel over to OU a couple times, and so what was your experience like at OU?
You know, it was to go from Youngstown to Athens, it's a much different place, right? It's country, it's spread out.
What's the name of that big street down there?
Court Street.
Court Street, yeah.
So in Court Street, a lot of bars, you got a movie theater, you got you got some of your facilities, library facilities and things like that. But it's very small place. But it allowed you to develop friendships with people from all over.
Right.
I mean, I had kids from Chicago living on my floor. And so those guys are still my friends. And so I really like the opportunity to go far enough to kind of start new, but not so far that you can't go home or your parents can't visit you. And so you were far enough that it was a good balance for me. I had great classes there. I had great teachers there. You know, no matter what I did the previous night, I always went to class. And so that was something that was really important. It was like, hey, get your butt to class. Like, even if you weren't 100% there, you were listening. You're taking notes.
Half the battle's showing up.
And some of these guys didn't show up, and those guys didn't end up staying. You know, because what happens is you skip a couple, then you're like, well, I don't really know what's going on anymore, so you skip a couple more, and then you're done. And then you're wasting your parents' money or your own money, and then you come back to wherever you came from. And I saw a lot of that, especially early on freshman year, because you go down there. It's a lot tighter now, the rules. But, I mean, you had a lot of freedom as an 18-year-old. For me, I was a 17-year-old for a couple weeks, just showing up, being like, oh, really? I live by myself now? Cool. I mean, but you got to have responsibility, and you have to have that ingrained in your head that you're there to go to school.
Exactly.
You could have fun,
Right.
but you're really there to go to school. And that's sometimes a tough balance for kids.
Okay. Very good. And then on to Capital Law School. My wife actually graduated from Capital Law School as well. She's not currently a practicing attorney,
Okay.
but she used to be. But tell us about, moving then to Columbus.
That was a tough transition for me. I really had to concentrate on learning how to study properly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I studied in college, but not to the extent to where when I got to law school and you have to read hundreds of pages a night, but 100 pages a night, and then be able to comprehend what you're reading and then be able to write about what you just read.
Sure.
That's a skill that takes a little bit of time. And it takes you to really buckle down and do that.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of friends in Columbus, which was good. I was going to go to Cleveland State, but all my buddies were going up there. So I just from OU. So I just said, "Hey guys, good luck in Cleveland. I'll be down in Columbus, and I'll see you guys in a few years."
Too much of a distraction?
Yeah, I didn't want to. I would have just continued with the same crew. They were all getting jobs and they were going to go to
Right.
work, but they didn't have to study like I did in the night. And so. I met really good friends. One of my buddies is a prosecutor down in Steubenville.
Sure.
Another buddy's a lawyer in Columbus, and we talk, every week and touch base on different cases and things. And I really enjoyed the time there. It was hard, but I got through it, and
And it's worth it in the end.
absolutely.
Very good. So that intern, you pass the bar and then you become a lawyer. Tell us a little bit about your family history. I know your dad was a lawyer as well.
Grandfather as well.
Oh, okay.
So it used to be downtown here. It used to be Green, Haynes, Schiavoni, and Scanbatti.
Okay.
That Schiavoni was my grandfather. And then towards the end of my grandfather's career and the beginning of my dad's career, they broke off and became Schiavoni, Bush, and Muldowney. Okay. And so our office is in Austintown. It's been in Austintown since the 80s. And so I started with them and primarily doing workers' comp law, representing injured workers in workers' comp cases. That's not a class that you learn at Capital Law School or on the bar. There's nothing about workers' comp. So it's basically, it was like back to school. Went back and just went with my dad and Attorney Muldowney and went through and just learned on the job.
Yeah.
But really, workers' comp is just about being honest and fair with people and just saying, okay, here's the facts, here's the case. You go in front of a hearing officer, not a judge, so they're in smaller groups where you're just kind of working through the case.
Okay.
I represent the injured worker, you represent the company. Let's figure out if we can get some resolution here, or the hearing officer decide. And you do that multiple times a day, every day.
Okay. Very good. So how did that in turn get you into thinking about getting into politics?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't the normal transition that occurs, I guess. Normally somebody says, okay, well, I want to get into politics, so I'm going to run for school board or county commissioner or something, and then build your resume. In my particular situation, there was a vacancy in 2008 for the Ohio Senate. John Bocherry ran for Congress in the middle of his term. The Ohio Senate was looking for replacements, and so they opened up the application process, to which I knew people here that said, look, Joe, we need somebody new down there. We need somebody young down there. They need an attorney down there because you'd be good at reading Ohio Revised Code and going through this kind of law with them. They need people on the Judiciary Committee and the Education Committee. So I put in an application for it. And then I went through multiple interviews, and then I got selected in 2008. I had to run in 10 and 14, and then my term was up. So I really didn't have a plan to be in politics. It just kind of happened, and it was an opportunity that I went for, and I was fortunate enough to get. And then I had to protect the seat and do everything that I could to try to, help the Mahoning Valley down there in Columbus.
Absolutely.
And but it wasn't a long-term plan.
Yeah, right.
It just
but like you said, the door opened. You took the opportunity. That's right. And look where you're at. That's right. That's great.
I appreciate that.
And so, what would a typical day in the Ohio Senate look like from your perspective?
So for me, I did it a little different because at that point, at the beginning, I didn't have kids, but then I had Louie soon after starting, then we had Dom a couple years later. And so I tried to spend as little time as possible in Columbus and the most time I could here. So it looked like for me leaving the house at about 4:30 in the morning on Tuesday to get there through the traffic by 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning.
Okay.
And so get there, and then every 15 minutes banging through appointments, go to my hearings, do the testimony, do my votes on the floor. And it would be long Tuesdays, like, you know, you're getting up that early and you're ending at night at some point. Then going to bed in Columbus, get up, do it again on Wednesday when the day ended, whenever it might be. Sometimes I was driving home at 2 in the morning, get back to Youngstown, and then work through the things at home, but then also work through things at the law firm.
Sure.
Because it is a part-time job in the Senate, but if you want to be good at it, you got to work. So you got your 2 days in Columbus, but the rest of the days you got to do your regular job as well as do your campaign work. So you got to raise money for your reelection.
Okay.
You got to go to all the events and speak about what you did on Tuesday and Wednesday in Columbus. Very busy schedule, but I loved it. I did. I mean, there was some things I didn't love about it, but for the most part, it was a good experience. And you know, I hope that I was able to make the Valley a little better and a little stronger with my service. And that was always my goal at the end of the day, even if it was small things. I mean, I was in the minority, so I wasn't going to get all of my bills passed, but I worked with Republicans on a daily basis because you had to. Everybody's down there doing the same thing, and they had the majority. Now, I fought with them a lot too. When I didn't like something, we would fight it out. But at the end of the day, it was about getting results for the Valley and spending as much time as I could with my family and keeping that somewhat normal in the midst of all that chaotic running around.
Yeah, I could only imagine. And you probably learned that 71 to 76. You probably can memorize
and then I made it a hell of a lot worse when I ran for governor, because then I was going nuts, because then I had to do my Senate work. I had to be in a different city before and after, and then I had to somehow try to figure out everything at home. That was
with
2017, 2018 were very, very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
I see people now today that I haven't seen since then, and they'll be like, "You look good. You didn't look too good."
We
then.
were a little worried about you.
What did I look like? They're like, "Not good."
Are you a coffee guy?
A lot. And that was, it saved me from, you know, to be able to do things, but I wasn't eating very healthy. I was trying to work out still. I probably went to every YMCA across the state. If you have a Y membership, then you get to use all of them.
All right.
So very nice Ys across the state, by the way.
All right. So talking about your run for governor, that was against Kasich, I believe, from the Republican side.
No, I was in the primary.
Oh, the primary. Okay.
The 2018 primary against Cordray and Kucinich.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like and what you learned from that experience.
Well, when I made the decision to run, there was no big name in the race. It was me. It was the mayor of Dayton. There was a state representative from Cincinnati. There was a former congresswoman from Barberton. And so the first 8 months of the gubernatorial campaign, it was us four. So we had 3 debates. We traveled the state. Everybody had even amounts of money. They did some polling. I was polling well. I had good reviews from the debates. And then all of a sudden, Cordray and Kucinich jumped in late. Cordray worked for President Obama and was our former attorney general. Kucinich ran for president of the United States and was the mayor of Cleveland for decades. And so all of a sudden, the field that I was running against, they all dropped out and supported Cordray. And then it was me and those 2 guys. Then Bill O'Neill, Supreme Court Justice, jumped in. And then it was like, "What are you going to do, Joe? You going to support Cordray like everybody else?" I'm like, "No, I'm running. I'm going to finish this race." And they're like, "Well, you're not going to win." I'm like, "Oh, how do you know?" And so we had a great campaign. We energized people from across the state. I just couldn't get enough money to get on television in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, Columbus, the big markets, to let the everyday casual Democratic voter know who I was. So I was still doing well in the debates. We had 4 more debates. We were getting positive reviews. I was filling up small rooms across the state, and everybody that left liked what they heard. but I couldn't get to the masses.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, it was a good experience. And what I learned from it was, politics can be tough when you don't have money.
Yeah.
And name recognition is important. And so when Cordray ran commercials with President Obama, and the guy's sitting at home drinking his coffee and he's a Democrat, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that guy worked for Obama. I'm good with him." They don't know who I am, and I can't get them to know me.
Sure.
So I'm done.
Yeah.
And the last 3 months were hard. I still got a significant number of votes.
Yeah.
I still won the 3 counties that we live in. So I won the Mahoning Valley in the primary, but he won the rest. So I won 3, he won 85.
Yeah. Well, but, at the end of the day, really being a younger guy and, like you said, not having quite the financial campaign backing that these other guys did, that's the unfortunate part of politics. It seems to be, just the name recognition gets people elected sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the votes, it was like Kucinich did well in Cleveland. He also did well with the older demographic that were more left-leaning. I would have done really well with that group if he didn't jump in.
Yeah.
And, Rich is a good guy, and so is Dennis. They worked hard. I got to be good friends with everybody in the race. And I think at the end of the day, although they were pushing me out when I was running, a lot of people respected me for not quitting.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I didn't. My dad told me, I remember we talked about it, and I could see the cards kind of being stacked against me. And he's like, just finish this thing out. And so we finished it out. I mean, I remember I saw the Coca's ad here, and Steve's one of my buddies, and I remember he had a fundraiser for me at Coca's. And that same night that he had a fundraiser for me at Coca's, Elizabeth Warren had a fundraiser for Cordray. I mean, I looked at how much he raised compared to how much we raised. We did well.
Yeah.
Filled place, people out, lined up outside. But we didn't quite raise what Elizabeth Warren raised for Cordray. Probably 10 times, right? It is what it is.
It is. Yeah.
And we did the best that we could. And
but I think you did the positive spin. You got your name out there, and you'd have that name recognition around the state now.
Well, and what's cool is, I got a lot of contributions for this local judgeship from people all across the state that said,
Very cool.
Look, you worked really hard, and we think you'd be a good judge. And therefore, here we'll help you in any way that we can.
So let's transition to that then. Let's talk about the November election coming up, and you are running for the Mahoning County judge seat. So tell us a little bit about that.
So the Mahoning County Court is a unique set up for a court system.
Okay.
Not a lot of counties still have it set up this way. It's a part-time judgeship to where you can still be a lawyer as long as you don't practice in a way that conflicts with what you do as a judge. So if I'm fortunate enough to win this seat, I will do 1 day or night in Sebring Court doing misdemeanor work, mostly criminal, but can also be civil up to $15,000.
Okay.
And then it'll most likely be 1 day in Austintown because that's the most crowded county court.
Okay.
There's 1 county court in Austintown, 1 in Canfield, 1 in Boardman, 1 in Sebring. The other days I'll still be able to do my workers' comp practice because it doesn't conflict with what you do as a judge in those courts.
Okay.
So that's the first confusing part, is people think I'm running for a full-time judgeship, which I'm not. The second one is only part of the county can vote for this county court, even though it's called Mahoning County Court.
Interesting.
The only people that can vote for Mahoning County are the people that are not served by a municipal court.
Okay.
So Boardman, Austintown, Canfield, Milton, Berlin, Greene, Goshen, Beaver, all of these areas, big townships west, vote for the county court.
Okay.
Youngstown has a muni court, so Youngstown residents don't vote for this. Struthers has a muni court, so no Struthers.
Okay.
Camel has a muni court, no Camel. And then Poland goes to Struthers court, so no Poland. So I constantly go through this with people as I travel throughout the day of who can vote and who can't and why.
Well, I think that's good information for people listening because, I had no idea.
Nobody
on that,
does.
So, okay.
I always tell people, if you pull down your street and you run the stop sign and a cop pulls you over, what court would you go to? And they say, Struthers. I say, well, then that's a municipal court. Youngstown, that's municipal court. If you go to Boardman, Canfield, Austintown, or Sebring, then you could vote in this election.
Okay, very good, very good. And I want to switch up from talking politics to get to sports here in a second, but I have to ask you one question, especially with the nature of our country right now. Obviously, we have Trump, we have Biden, and a lot of people are way over here or way over here. It is a extremely polarized country right now. What do we do? How do we somehow find some common ground in the middle? I like to say I'm more conservative because I think, I see Republicans' way on certain things. I see Democrats' way on certain things. But, I think it's important for people to be able to speak their mind and hear others. What's your thoughts?
I was just going to say something similar. People have to realize that we're all in this together, no matter how you see things.
Right.
And other people can have different perspectives than you, and you can still be friends. The problem is now people get so mad at each other about stupid stuff, and they honestly go to their corners and get angry.
Right.
And then it's like, whoa, all we were doing was talking. And so I think we just need people at the top to, both Democrats and Republicans, to just start talking to everybody and not just trying to talk to their base.
Right.
And not just trying to get 51% to vote for them, but try to get the majority of the people to come on board to be with you at least on some policies.
Exactly.
You're not going to get there every single time on every single thing, but it's about listening and it's about working hard together.
No doubt.
It's hard to do, but it's getting worse. In the state Senate, it was different than in Congress because we all kind of had the goal of, we kind of need each other here to work through this issue. Like, we have to balance a budget. You actually had to have a balanced budget, so you needed to work together to find common ground.
Yeah.
In Congress, it's just crazy, and everybody's at each other's throats. So I think it's time that everybody just takes a step back and just listen a little more than they talk, and then figure out how you can be a little bit more understanding, how you can be a little bit more positive, how you could try to develop a thought about what you want in the long run and maybe what you agree on, and not just the, oh my God, I can't believe you said that.
Right.
I hate you. Like that. And then it's like,
and the Facebook comments and the Twitter section, that doesn't help anything right now either, because it just, like you said, it's so divisive.
it's a lot easier to be mean on here than it is face to face.
Right.
And that's another thing, about bullying in schools too. It's a lot easier to bully somebody on your phone or on your computer. It's the same way with political stuff. It's so easy to type out this long thing and just boom, you just hit it, and it makes you feel good for a second, but you just created chaos on there.
It's unfortunate, and hopefully
we'll get there eventually. We have good people in this country. We just have to get leadership that tries to embrace everybody. At least tries. You're not going to be able to, but try.
Yeah. I can't elaborate anymore on that because that's as perfectly said as it can be. All right, so we talked about going to their separate corners. Let's talk about your boxing background, because you mentioned you had a little bit of wrestling and some individual sports. Tell us a little bit about your boxing background, because obviously Youngstown's known for its boxing.
Yeah, well, my dad was a boxer, and he boxed in the Golden Gloves in the 70s. And so, like I said, I played basketball, I played football, I wrestled in 8th grade, and I realized that I loved sports and I loved competition, but I probably wasn't going to be able to participate, in varsity football or in varsity basketball or baseball. And so I got into boxing. My dad brought me down to the gym, and I really, really enjoyed it. Boxing is a sport that it takes a lot of heart. It takes a lot of guts. You got to be in shape, and if you train harder than the other person, sometimes you could beat them just on endurance and just will. Now, sometimes the other guy's just too good and you just don't win. But if you try really, really hard in an individual sport like that, and you really dedicate yourself, you can do good. And that, for me, that was the key. And boxing with guys from all over this area, it was cool. Just kids from all the different areas, all the different schools, and we all had a team. We were Southside Boxing Club. So Pavlik was on my team. He was a freshman when I was a senior.
Wow.
And so he used to, when he really started getting good, he was like 15 and I was like 18.
Okay.
And he started beating my ass.
Were you in the same weight class?
Close.
Okay.
And he started getting me. And as 18-year-old, it's embarrassing to get beat up by a 15-year-old until that 15-year-old becomes the middleweight champion of the world.
Right, right.
It's like, well,
one of the greatest of all time as well.
but
so.
it was, we had a traveling team. Kelly was on it, I was on it. Some other guys from Mooney were on it. Some guys from Fitch were on it.
Okay.
Some guys from Youngstown were on it. And we traveled regionally and fought in different places.
Okay, very cool. And I think Pavlik finished somewhere in the mid-30s, like 30-1 or 35-1, something like that. But obviously one of the greatest of all time. Who were some of your, it doesn't have to be boxing, but who were some of your sports idols growing up?
You know, when I was little, we'd go to a lot of Indians games. So like, you know, Sandy Alomar,
Yeah.
Bell before he became Bad Bell. You know, he was good.
Joey Bell?
Yeah, Joey Bell, not Albert Bell. Like, I really liked a lot of the Indians players, like when I was little, like Corey Snyder and Joe Carter.
Okay.
And like, you know, we went to Old Municipal Stadium. It was awesome, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there was a lot of Buckeyes that were just, you know, Herb Street and a lot of those Buckeye players, Eddie George, they were just like good players, seemed like good guys, and you know, I really enjoyed going. My dad would bring us to a lot of Indians games, a lot of Buckeye football, and so we spent a lot of time going to those places.
Okay. I asked a previous guest, a friend of mine that I had on, he's a basketball coach, but I asked him if he had a time machine and a ticket, where would you travel or what game would you go to if you could pick any game in the past?
So I went, it's not really a game, but I went to the Pavlik-Taylor first fight.
All right.
Atlantic City, packed house, 50% of the people there were from Youngstown.
Cool.
Kelly losing, gets knocked down in the third round, stumbling around like to where one more shot, he's probably done.
Mm-hmm.
The ref doesn't stop the fight. The bell rings. All of a sudden, fourth round, fifth round, sixth, he's coming on. The crowd is just building with just anticipation and just our guy might do this, right?
Right.
And when he knocks Taylor out, Taylor slumps down in the corner and the crowd just goes wild. To where, like, I get goosebumps thinking about it right now.
Oh, yeah.
That was amazing.
Were you able to go to the fight down here at the Covelli Center?
I did.
Did you? How's the atmosphere on that one?
Awesome. But, I mean, that fight was for the title in Atlantic City against Taylor. The fight here was cool for Youngstown because it was Youngstown, but he was already the champ. It was great to like see like Herb Street and like Buster Douglas and like guys sitting in the Covelli Center. That was cool.
Yeah.
But that fight on that day in Atlantic City was the best.
Okay.
The only thing, if I had a second choice, it would be my dad brought us to the Ohio State-Miami national title game with the flag in the end zone with Gamble, and that was pretty awesome too. So I would take the time machine back to see that as a second choice.
I can't disagree with you on that one. Are you a Cavs fan?
I am.
Okay, so how about 2016?
I mean,
what were your feelings on that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, my wife tells the boys when LeBron hit the big shot, I like flew off the couch and started rolling around on the ground. I kind of did, I guess, but yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I try to bring my kids to a lot of Cavs games. Obviously not this year, but last year we went to a ton of games. Saw them take it on the chin a couple times, but you know, they were an exciting team to watch.
Right.
And they played some tough games. They got rolled by the really good teams sometimes, but I mean,
I wouldn't trade in that 4 or 5 year run there for anything. I'll take a couple bad years for a title.
My wife loves the Cavs. She works at the Cleveland Clinic part-time. And I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but she brought the kids to that giant parade when they were like babies, and she was like stuck in there, but she wanted to be there so bad. Yeah. I was at work and she called me and she said, I'm bringing them to the I'm like, you're what? Did you see that crowd of them? But she did. Everybody's fine.
Good for her. I love it.
She said it was pretty awesome too.
That shows a true sports fan
right
there.
It was blazing hot out there, thousands of people, but she loved it.
All right. I'm going to switch to a segment we haven't done yet on the show.
All right.
But I'm gonna have Joe Danier queue up a few videos here in a minute, and we're gonna talk about fair or foul. So I'm gonna give you an example, and you tell me if it's fair or foul. So first question I got:
Is it coming up here?
It'll be up here in a minute.
Okay.
So, and I'll lead into that first. But the first question I have is wearing jerseys. So like a basketball jersey, football jersey, anywhere besides a game or somewhere to watch a game. So if you're just walking around in public with a jersey, fair or foul?
I think it's fair.
Okay.
I think it's fair. I respect that.
All right. I don't want you to lose any voters on that issue. All right. Now the Big Ten. That's a huge deal right now with them not playing. You got most of the major Power Five voting to play. So Big Ten right now not playing, fair or foul?
I think it's foul. I mean, at this point, at first, you know, when you're listening to doctors and you're listening to the experts, and that was the path to go down. All right, but now if the other conferences are going to play, put these guys in. Put them in a bubble and let them play. I mean, these kids need to play. And if they're the only ones that aren't playing and everybody else is playing, that is going to affect them a great deal.
Now, as a lawyer, there's a lot of lawsuits going on right now because they're saying some of these first-round guys might drop to the second round, so that might cause future financial implications.
I think it would be very hard to prove.
Yeah.
But I get I get that there will be lawsuits, but I think proving that is nearly impossible.
Sure. Okay, next one, random. Putting Halloween decorations up on September 1st, fair or foul?
That's pretty foul.
Okay, I'm in agreement with that one. All right, the next one, I'm gonna have you watch this video, and for people just listening, this happened in a game earlier this week. This umpire's name is Joe West, and he gets into it with a general manager up in the stands. It's about a minute-long video. I'm gonna have you take a look.
Wow, somebody's getting kicked out. Hunter Wendelstedt sees somebody in the upper deck, on the second deck. Somebody's been ejected, either Joe West or Hunter Wendelstedt saw it, and they've asked security to be called, either the second deck or third deck. And they said, we'll wait for you.
That's the GM right
That'll
there.
be Mike Rizzo. Nationals GM who's traveling with the club here in Atlanta.
Oh, I think it is. It might be the way he was yelling back.
So he's telling him he doesn't have a mask on.
I love how Hunter, I don't know if you heard him say, hey, Brian, to stick, call security.
Yeah, Joe West the same. Now,
And it would tell the manager to call security.
protocol ballpark, we're supposed to have a mask on in public areas, right? I don't know where Mike is standing. I don't see him. But Brian Cruz can get charged with brave security and ask whoever is there to be escorted out.
All right, so there's that. All right, so basically the GM for the Nationals is giving shit to an umpire for balls and strikes. And then he ejects him for not wearing a mask. Fair or foul on that one? What do you think?
I think I'm gonna cry foul on that one only because I think I think there was something going on way before that.
Oh, yeah.
I think those two guys hate each other.
Oh, yeah.
And the one guy who has a little more power on that day makes a decision to do that. That's about all I can read into the situation.
All right, very, very good. All right, leaving. This one gets me every time I go to the grocery store. Leaving your shopping cart randomly anywhere in the parking lot.
Yeah, totally foul.
Foul.
And
I agree.
and you see people do it 5 feet away from the proper place to. All you got to do is one more push, man. Just push it in there.
I used to say when I was a coach, that's like when you're doing line drills and someone doesn't touch the line. I'm like, you're going to be one of those people later on down the road that doesn't put their damn shopping cart back. To me, I cry
connect
foul
the
on that all the
dots. Yeah,
time.
I'm with you.
All right. Pumpkin spiced anything. Fair or foul?
Fair.
All right.
Fair.
Okay.
It does taste good, especially when it gets a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
Maybe a pumpkin. I don't really like all the pumpkin coffees. I just like regular coffee. But pumpkin cake, pumpkin muffins. Those are good. Cookies, whatever.
Okay. I I don't love it as much as some people seem to love it, but I'll agree with you on that one. Okay, and we have one more video we're going to show up here in a minute. This happened earlier in the week, and this was a big deal in the tennis community. This is Novak Djokovic, and he was disqualified from the U.S. Open for what we're going to see up here on the video.
Yeah, I didn't see this, but I saw that McEnroe was chiming in on it.
Yeah.
Well, I think they got it right. Peter. No, we didn't mean it, but it's an incident that could haunt the Joker for years to come. The #1 seed kicked out of the Open for hitting a line judge with a ball. Now he's on the offensive to restore his tarnished reputation.
It was the hit he'll forever regret. Novak Djokovic, deep in the first set of his fourth-round US Open match, struck a linesperson hard in the throat. Struggling to breathe, the woman was taken to hospital. The Joker pleaded with officials to not disqualify him from the tournament. After 10 minutes of back and forth, the verdict was in.
It's over.
He immediately fled Flushing Meadows and left all the questions for others to answer.
I was in shock. I never expected this moment playing against Novak, you know.
Others did, though. This was the 2016 French Open, where a flung racket narrowly missed a linesperson, and another incident that year led to this exchange with a journalist.
Does it concern you that one day that could cost you dearly? I mean, if the ball had hit someone today, is that something you think you ought to address?
You guys are unbelievable.
Why is it unbelievable?
Yeah, because you're always picking this kind of things. It's incredible.
2.5 hours after this morning's incident, Djokovic released an Instagram statement which said he's sad and empty and sorry. The tennis world was divided as to the harshness of the punishment, which was the stripping of all $340,000 prize money earned, plus his removal from the tournament.
Was it the right decision? Absolutely. There was no choice for the officials but to send Novak on his way.
If he would have landed anywhere else, I mean, we're talking about a few inches, he would have been fine.
Always a fan of a bit of niggle, Nick Kyrgios took to social media asking if he'd done the same thing, how many years would I be banned for? 5, 10 or 20? Rob Canning, 9 News.
So you saw the video. What do you think about that?
I mean, an athlete like him has to be held to a high standard. So you can't be doing that.
Right.
You can't be throwing your racket. You can't be just randomly hitting balls. But is it a criminal offense? I don't think there was any intent to hit the woman, especially in the throat. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he deserves some punishment, but I don't know. I mean,
that's how I feel on it too. I don't think he deserves to be.
There's worse things in the world than that.
All right. So we're gonna say fair on that? Foul on that for kicking him out?
Yeah, okay. I think so. He
All
should have been able to play the rest of the game.
Okay. All right, 3 more questions for this section. The Indians, and we know they lost last night again, 3-0. The Bats. Are they a World Series contender with their lineup? Fair or foul?
I want to say fair because I want him to be, but these hitting laws that they're going into,
yeah,
I don't know if they could be a contender. So I mean, I'm gonna have to reluctantly say foul because I just don't see it with this. When they go into these like 5-game streaks where they score 5 runs,
right? Yeah, and
you just can't win the World Series that way.
No, and I feel you always hear that old adage: pitching wins championships. Well, yeah, but you still got to score.
You got to hit the ball. I mean, especially this year with these guys, you can't lose to the Royals. If they lose again to the Royals tonight,
they're in trouble. Yeah. Browns make the playoffs. Fair or foul?
I think fair. I think they're going to do it this year.
Okay, I'm in agreement with you. And final one, being a boxing guy, Mike Tyson's back in the ring, I believe next month or later this month. He's 53. Fair or foul?
Completely foul. It makes me sad. I love Tyson.
Yeah.
I mean, you could watch those old clips, and then you're going to see what he's going to look like here, and it's just going to be sad. I mean, still, you could put somebody in front of him that he could knock out. I mean,
no doubt.
If you put Jones in front of him, he'll knock Jones out because Jones been knocked out 100 times in his last fights. But Jones was great too.
Right.
I mean, with boxing, it's the saddest sport because you see what these people were and how good you were, and they always, not always, but a lot of times end up getting knocked out in their last fight or just looking horrible in their last fight. And it's like, man, you miss, but they run out of money and they got to try to find it. So I respect the hustle, but it's sad to watch. So foul for sure.
All right, let's switch. Switch now. We got just a few minutes left. We're going to pick some games against the spread.
Right,
so the NFL kicks off tonight. So that is your reminder to set your fantasy football lineup if anybody out there's playing. So we're going to pick games against the spread. So I'll tell you the line. You pick yours, then I'll pick my game.
All right.
And then we'll throw it out there, put us on blast, and see how we do. All right. So tonight, the Houston Texans, I almost said Oilers. Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, they are allowing 17,000 fans at the game.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So the line is 9.5.
I'll take the underdog.
Okay.
Take the Texans.
Joe's going Houston. I'm gonna go with the favorite, Kansas City. Sunday, Browns Ravens, 8.5 Ravens.
I just said the Browns are going to make the playoffs, but I think the Ravens are going to pound them in the first game, so I'll go with the Ravens.
I unfortunately am going to agree with you on that one too. Seattle, they're -2. And they're at Atlanta.
I'll go with Seattle.
Okay, and we're in agreement on that one. I think as long as they have Russell Wilson.
I don't know who Atlanta's going to be that good this year.
I think Atlanta's probably the fourth team in their division. Them or Carolina. It's a flip of a coin, but you got New Orleans and you got Tampa now above them. AFC East game, Jets at Bills. Now, if this game had fans, I would totally be on the Bills bandwagon. The Bills are a 6.5 point favorite. What's your thoughts?
I'll still take the Bills.
Okay.
Jets suck.
I do not like the Jets, but for some reason I'm picking the Jets to cover at least. So Joe's taking the Bills. I'm taking the Jets. The Raiders, which are now Las Vegas Raiders, they are favored by 3 and they are at Carolina.
I mean, with Vegas being their first game, I just think that this is when I start getting in conspiracy theories. Like, they have to cover.
Right.
Vegas has to cover on their first game.
Okay. All right. I'm in agreement with you on that one, too. Bears at Lions. To me, these are a couple mystery teams here. So Lions are favored by 3.
I'll go with the Bears.
Okay. I'm going to go. You're taking the Bears?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Lions because when Matt Stafford was healthy last year, I think they were a really good football team.
They get good receivers.
And they really do. They have a lot of talent. I think the Lions and the Cardinals are sort of like those sleeper teams this year. Colts, -7.5 at Jacksonville.
Well, my buddy works for the Colts, so I got to go with the Colts.
Okay.
I should have called him. If I would have known this, he could have given me some insight. He would have told me the truth, too.
I'm going to go with the Colts, too, just simply because I think Jacksonville's the worst team in the league.
Yeah, they're a little rough.
What does he do for the Colts, by the way?
He does marketing for them. He worked for the Cubs and the Blackhawks. There's one of the guys I was talking about that I went to OU with from Chicago. All right. And now he does marketing for the Colts. That's a pretty good gig. Yeah, he's really pumped about it. It's his second year.
All right, very cool. Very cool. Packers at the Vikings. The Vikings are -3.
I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Okay. You are going Vikings. I'm going to go Packers because I like Aaron Rodgers. I think they're good, but I think the Vikings are due for a down year. Dolphins at Patriots. You got Cam Newton. You got
Fitzmagic. You got to go Miami. They said Fitzpatrick starting. I mean, he's so old. But he has like 10 kids, so maybe he's going to play for all the kids. I'm with the Dolphins.
That's what I was telling Joe the other day about Phillip Rivers. He's got like 35 kids.
Does he really?
All right, so you're going Miami.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Patriots. I mean, Bill Belichick's doing Subway commercials now, man.
Right.
And you got Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton's going to surprise this year. -6 Eagles at the Washington football team.
Oh, Jesus. Is that what they're called?
Football club, football team.
That's really what they're called.
Mm-hmm.
What's their mascot?
I don't know if they might just have that burgundy maroon helmet with a number on it this year until they
Who are they playing?
pick something. They're playing the Eagles, and the Eagles are favored by 6.
I'll take the Washington football team just for
All right.
They need some help.
I'm going to go with the Eagles on that one. Chargers -3 at Cincinnati. So you got your Athens boy.
I'll go with the Bengals. We'll go with the Bengals.
Okay.
Go with Joe.
I'm going to go with the Bengals as well.
My wife's calling me. I should get her to pick the next one. Here, I'm going to make her answer. What's our next game?
The Bucks at the Saints.
Margaret, I'm
Tampa.
on the podcast here with Mr. Coffin. I need a pick from you. The Bucks or the Saints? She said, oh boy, Saints. All right, Saints it is. I'll call you after.
All right.
Good pick.
All right, I'm going to agree with her. I'm going to go New Orleans as well. Cardinals at 49ers. 49ers are a touchdown favorite.
Yeah, they're going to smash them. San Francisco.
Okay, same here. Agreed. Sunday night. Now we got 3 games left. Sunday night, Cowboys versus the Rams. I'm actually not sure who's home. I think the Rams are home in that game, but the Cowboys are 2.5
I hate the Cowboys.
favorite.
I'll take the Rams.
All right. I'm going to go Cowboys. Joe is going Rams. Monday night, we have Steelers at Giants. Steelers are a 6-point favorite.
Go with Big Ben. We'll go with the home teamers. We'll go. I think Pittsburgh will get them.
I think you're right. I'm going to go with the Giants just because my head is.
I did take
my heart's
Pittsburgh though in
racing.
the last opening game against New England, and they lost 40-0. And it was really sad. I was in Las Vegas for that, and it really hurt.
When there's actual money involved,
it really,
it stings a little bit worse. And then the final game, the Tennessee Titans at the Denver Broncos.
Titans.
Okay. We're going to disagree on that one as well. I'm going to go Denver just simply because they're playing in Mile High. No preseason games this year. I don't know if they'll be able to acclimate to that climate. So we'll see. All right, Joe. Well, we're going to wrap up the show here. So, I'd like to thank you, first of all, so much for coming on. You're always welcome on if you want to come back in, especially during the election. I tend to end the show with a quote, so I'm going to say, it came from Roald Dahl, and it kind of had like a voting aspect to it. So it said, somewhere inside of us all is the power to do something to change the world. So I thought that was good. So especially in November, make sure you go out and vote. If you're in one of those precincts that can vote for Joe, consider him on that ballot. I'd also like to thank Coca's Pizza for being our sponsor. Football's back tonight, don't forget that. And on behalf of everyone down here at Youngstown Studios, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.